Hello, hello everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or maybe even good night, wherever you are. And welcome. This is our fifth session of studying the great Karma Chamé Rinpoche's text on Chinrezig practice as the very embodiment of Mahamudra, of Dzogchen, of the deepest teachings. So welcome back. It's 2 weeks since we saw each other, and let's start in a very, very excellent way by reminding ourselves of our bodhicitta. I think for many of us, our bodhicitta commitment, the sacred promises we've made to ourselves, to everybody else. And for those of you who are not there yet, then nevertheless the wonderful wishes of our Bodhisattva prayer. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through our practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings who are so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well. May they live long and be healthy. May they be well provided for, have good friends. May they find respect and live in places of peace, places of plenty. And most of all, may they practice dharma. May they each create the causes for those good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. And may they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural, sacred well-being totally beyond suffering and attain great equanimity, free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamawati shameta shatru kurimam kurimarajite karote keorite jovati oloyani bishuda nimale malapanaye kukure kakagrase krasana omuki paramuki amuki shamedawani sawagraha bandhanane Negri hitva sawabhava prawadina vamukta marapasha savitva buddhamudra anudgatita savamare butsarita parishuddha biga shantu savamara kama. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our heads on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. Thank you. So we're going through this first chapter of Karma Chamé's work. Karma Chamé, I suppose I need to resume. We're going through this work by Karma Chamé, who was a 17th century, very, very eminent master, one of the greatest of all the masters in Tibetan history, and who gave us so many wonderful texts which are concise, that sum up everything about so many different practices. So he wrote many texts at people's request about many practices, and they're called altogether his Mountain Dharma. And the Karma Center in America, USA, has published translations of many of these. They are an incredible resource. There was Karma Chamé in the 17th century. More recently, there was Mipam Rinpoche. Their works are like amazing need-to-know summaries with the essentials about so many things. And in particular, Karma Chamé was first the master of, and then the student of, the very great Mingyur Dorje. Terten Mingyur Dorje, not the Mingyur Rinpoche we have these days, different lineage. But anyway, who gave us so many of the Chinrezig and in particular Amitabha teachings, Pure Land teachings, rebirth in Dewa Chen. So Karma Chamé's work that we're studying here shows us how Chinrezig is really the be-all and end-all, at the very heart of the deepest of teachings, and as a practice, the most accessible, the most useful for us. You could never find anything better. That's what this text is about. And it's also some instructions about how to practice Chinrezig, our attitude, the way we go about it. So although there are many chapters, this first chapter is really very essential. It's also very profound, so I've been going through it quite slowly, a verse or two each session, because it's important. So in the last teachings, we were looking at this analysis called View, Meditation, Practice and Result. And I explained 2 sessions ago the importance of that framework. The view is about how clear, how deep your understanding of everything is, how you see yourself, and it's called view. It's about your vision of who you are, what the universe is, what's possible, what we can attain, how we can attain it. And so view is at the heart of everything we do. So then the next thing is meditation. That's what we do in our most intimate, most powerful, most meaningful moments within ourselves. It's our inner reflection under the heading meditation. But here it's not just sitting on your cushion and doing practices. It's about how you cultivate your own inner awakenness, how awake you are, how well you understand what's going on, how well you understand yourself and your own mind. So all of that happens not just sitting on a cushion doing practices. It's 24/7. It's about your work with yourself, your inner reflections, your inner light bulb moments when suddenly you understand better. So that's meditation. It's so intimate, you can't share it with anybody, even with your own meditation teacher. It's what's happening inside you. It's enormous. It touches on so many things, so we can talk about it in words to our teacher, and basically they can see where we're at, what we need to do next. But it is totally, totally intimate because of your view of things. So view, meditation, and then action or conduct. That's about you and the rest of life, how you live in relation to other sentient beings, nature, the environment, this world that you experience, what it does to you, how you handle that, how you use it in a transformative process. So action. And then the last one is the result. It's called fruition or result. So somebody who has this view and who meditates in this way and who conducts their life with other people that way, what's the very, very best that can produce? So according to our view, Theravada view, Mahayana view, Vajrayana view, Christian view, scientific view, whatever, then we're going to handle our intimate awakening, whatever it is. For instance, I had somebody come to fix a door the other day in the house, and he was talking about how he'd received Jesus. It's great, a man of a lot of faith, very nice man. But so somewhere inside him now Jesus has been received, and he's sort of at the heart of his inner mind functioning. It's about him and his relationship with Jesus, with the Christ, and so on. So if we've got this view, we meditate this way, and in life we've got our own moral code and our guidelines about how we should live our life out in terms of other people, then all of that, what's the maximum it can produce? So we look at different results from non-Buddhist teachings, what sort of rebirth they can produce if you have that view, meditation and conduct. For instance, with a lot of shamatha and a conduct based on loving kindness and care for other beings, you can be reborn in the Brahma world, even as a god like Brahma. And then within the Buddhist fold, we see you can become the very best an arhat through the Shravaka path. You become a Buddha through the Bodhisattva path, or you can become a Buddha quickly, more quickly, but the same Buddha. There's only one Buddha you can become through the Vajrayana path. So as far as I remember, in the last session, we had looked at view and we'd looked at meditation, and we'd seen that the view is very profound. It's not about thoughts, ideas, philosophy. Here it's about being. The actual way you view yourself and the world, and the view that is being explained through this text is Buddha nature, and it is by being in Buddha nature that we have a totally clear view of everything, ourselves, everyone else, existence, how it works, how karma works, all of that. That is the best view that comes out of being immersed in Buddha nature, as we studied it last year. But we can also call that the true nature of mind. We can call it Mahamudra. We can call it Dzogchen. So the view we're aiming to cultivate is that, but specifically through the practice of Chinrezig, where by being Chinrezig, we are all four kayas: Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nimanakaya, Svabhavika kaya, as we do the Chinrezig practice and we just let Chinrezig be through us, in us, be everything we are sitting on our cushion, then we are in the very deep view of things. For many of us, the Chinrezig practice we do is four-armed Chinrezig, but there are many, many forms of Chinrezig, and Karma Chamé, who gave us this particular text, spent many years, I forget, it's a lot, 11, 17, I forget, but a lot of years in retreat on a form of Chinrezig called in Tibetan, Jawa Jamso. It means an ocean of the victorious ones. And it's an incredibly complete form of golden Chinrezig, not white Chinrezig, golden Chinrezig, but in a mandala, meaning accompanied by all of the gurus, yidams, protectors, Buddhas, bodhisattvas. So it's like the whole crew, you know, all levels of management are there, and you become that. And so that particular very complete mandala of the main components of Vajrayana Buddhism, Jawa Jansha, I think it's Samarajina in Sanskrit. That was not only his practice, but it also comes through in our Karmakaju lineage as a specific practice called Karmapakshi Guru Yoga, which some of you may know and do. So he did that then later on we had the four-arm practice we do, but there are two-arm Chinrezigs, there are red Chinrezigs, there are all sorts of Chinrezigs, and something some of you have done, which is the 1,000-armed, 11-headed Chinrezig of the Nyumne practice. So here we're talking in general, when we talk about practice, whichever form of practice it is, meditation, number 2, view, meditation practice, whatever we call it. Chinrezig practice is the view. So anyway, we looked at that in much more detail in the last sessions, and today we move on, if I'm not mistaken, although maybe I did it last time, I can't remember. But anyway, to the what's called conduct, practice, our relation to other people. So now we're in this verse which says, there are many ways of acting, high and low, coarse and fine. But the wisest is to exert oneself as much as possible in accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil. So we're talking about action. And the Tibetan is Chopa Tomin Sing Shipmanayang Gedrup Dikpang Chinu Bepazap. Very simple verse, but a doorway to so much that we do need to know. So it says there are many ways, it means many ways for Buddhists to act. High and low. So here, high and low refers to all the ways of acting of the three main yanas, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana. We don't want to say Hinayana, meaning the lesser yana, because you feel that's kind of insulting. We can call it Shravaka yana. So there are many ways. They don't all act the same. That's one thing. And then the way we see it in the sort of mindset we have if we're studying this text in Vajrayana is that what we call the low is the absolute basic necessary. I mean, if you're acting as a Buddhist, at least do this. At least do this. And then for those who can go further, for those who've got a very it's called an awakened bodhicitta because of their past lives, and who have a loving heart, kind mind, and many of the qualities naturally. Then there is the bodhisattva path, and so that's considered higher, but it's based on the basic path. That's why it's called the basic path, because it's the basis for all the rest. So then there's the bodhisattva path, and for those who can practice, apply that in their action, involving other people, what they do with their lives, then if they can have that basis and be a bodhisattva, then that's the basis for Vajrayana practice. So the late Kalu Rinpoche, remember when he was teaching us, he says it's like a teacup. So here he was talking about a Tibetan teacup. The cup itself is sort of conical. The base is very narrow, so it doesn't kind of stand up all by itself like one of our teacups or like a mug. You can't just put it down. So it has a base. It has a metal base. So this teacup, I'm getting my hands all mixed up, this teacup, which is kind of that shape, goes into the metal base, which holds it very firmly. It's very pretty, nice metal, elegantly carved base often. And then if you're really posh, a jade conical teacup that can go into that. And then usually there's a lid on the top to keep it warm. So then the basics, or the lowest isn't the best word, basic minimum form of action is the Shravaka level. That's like the base for the teacup. Holds it all properly, safely, firmly in place. This is our precepts. Our precepts not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, no sexual misconduct, and then no intoxicants. Those kind of basic way of living. You live, you don't go and get drunk or stoned, and you're very careful with property and the whole thing, the whole world of possession, which is a weird world, but anyway, it's the way our society ticks. Don't steal. You're very sensitive to life and respectful of life in all of its forms, and so on. This is a basic mentality of what I do and what I will never do, knowingly, intentionally, never harm another being with my body, with my speech, and then cultivate a mind which sees everyone through eyes of kindness. This is really the basic dharma. And then if that's there, that teacup stand is there, then the beautiful jade teacup of bodhicitta is well held, is not going to fall over. And then if that cup is there, not cracked or damaged or poisoned or anything like that, it's there as a pure vessel, then the tea can go in it, which is what it's all about, and the tea is Vajrayana. But Vajrayana needs that clean vessel. If it's dirty, poisoned, got germs, if it's cracked and leaks and so on, then it's not a worthy vessel for the tea. So Vajrayana needs the support of the bodhisattva mind, and that needs the support of basic dharma, which is totally contained in one term, no harm. no harm. You don't harm yourself, your own mind, your own karma anymore. You don't harm anybody else. All the precepts are there to stop us harming. The basic level. The bodhisattva level is to bring out all the richness of love and peace and aspiration to awakening in our mind. So stop the harm, bring out all the most beautiful human qualities, and that enables us, gives us the basis for Vajrayana practice, which is like the actual tea. Delicious, delicious, nourishing, stimulating. It's the whole reason the teacup's there. Otherwise it's just an ornament. It's there to hold Vajrayana. So it says there are many ways, high and low, and all of them are wonderful ways of being a human being. So when we look at the Shravaka level, the discipline, the amount of discipline that's there, whereby you're so mindful about not to harm or damage other beings, you're mindful of their space and their needs. And when you walk, you're very careful how you walk so you don't crush any insects and so on and so on. There's a great deal of mindfulness based on care for others and care for one's own inner peace and stability. So they're called low in this context, but we shouldn't let that word make us put them down. And I've shared many times in our courses over the last couple of years, one of my own experiences as a stupid Buddhist, when I was traveling with the 16th Karmapa, we visited the London Buddhist Vihara of, I forget which, I think it was the Sri Lankan Vihara, but it could have been the Burmese. Anyway, we were visiting Theravada Monastery, Vihara. It was a small place, not many monks. And so me, baby Buddhist, having read Vajrayana text, I think, Hinayana, Shravakayana, these haven't got all the goodies of the Bodhisattva path, of the Vajrayana path. So I went in a mindset of arrogance. And the Karmapa looked at me in a way that only a Karmapa can look at you, which is totally illusion destroying and telling you what an idiot you are. And as he went in, he put his hands to his heart like this, and he showed such respect to all the monks and to the image and to the vihara. So when we say the lower thing, this is low from, you say, the Buddha's point of view. This is low from, if you're up high in an aeroplane, or like we've seen these images from people going way into space, if you're very high, those things are low. The top of Mount Everest is low. But when you're on the ground, the top of Mount Everest is very high. So when we see these low things, we need to know it's the basics. It's the basics. That's the best way to think of it. So there are many ways, Bodhisattva way, Vajrayana way, high and low. And in particular, in the Vajrayana teachings, somewhere we get to the sameness of samsara and nirvana. We get to the point of understanding that all human morality is a value judgment. It's an idea. And that there isn't really morality, there is the natural power of karma. if you damage other people, not only do you damage them, you damage yourself. It causes nothing but harm. It's stupid. It's everywhere. This is samsara. There is no God-given rule. There's just the very nature of the way things work. So we see humans make their own rules. Just look across our planet now at what people think is sin or virtue. We have Sharia, extreme Sharia that's not Sharia, but that's something that's evolved in Afghanistan, Iran, and so on. In those people's mind, what is virtue and what is evil is one thing, almost the opposite of what is virtue and what is evil in the USA, in Europe. And if it's hard to talk without upsetting people, but if you're in the Jewish religion, you're the chosen people. If you're in the Christian religion, for many Christians, no salvation if you haven't accepted Jesus. And so on. The idea of right, wrong, morality is a mindset. It's a set of projections. And so when you have ways of acting, in a very high way of acting, what's referred to as high here, which would be a Vajrayana way, totally based in the Bodhisattva mind and on the basic rules of dharma, it would be okay to kill for the greater good. So it's not Buddhists don't kill, full stop, which is normally our guideline, is if all the circumstances were correct, it would be better all round to kill somebody than not to kill them. And there's a very famous story, the one that's quoted from the past lives of the Buddha, where he was on a boat. There was somebody who was going to sink the boat, scupper the boat, first steal the most valuable things, escape in a small boat, and at the same time sinking the big boat, which had hundreds of people on. So it's one of these things of having to act instantly. So the Buddha killed the thief. It was the only thing to do in those circumstances. It saved the thief from having the karma of killing a few hundred people. It saved the lives of those few hundred people. And in the instant, the Bodhisattva, because it's the past lives of the Buddha, he couldn't convince the person not to do it. People need to be open to conviction. There's no time to do anything, but in that case, kill him. So he killed the person, which meant that the Bodhisattva took on the karma of killing. I mean, you can't really escape that. But what he did was the best all round, and the greatest good. If you look in history and a religion, this idea of it's okay to do it for the greatest good has been misused again and again. People who think they're acting in a holy way for the greater good, for the long-term good, but who cause a lot of damage. There's so many examples. Does that make sense? Can you sort of nod if what I'm saying makes sense? The idea of you can break the rules for the greater good is a very tricky thing. But in the highest course of action, for a clear mind, that it says where you have no personal vested interest at all yourself, where you do know the karma that's behind what's going on and the karmic outcomes of what happens if you intervene. So when there's this clarity, real clarity of mind, and it really is in the short and the long term the best thing to do, then there can be extraordinary action. Let's take a more simple, everyday example. I mean, it's not really what we're talking about here, but to give you an idea. If there's somebody, vulnerable person, being chased by thieves, rapists, robbers, or whatever, so the person goes by running away, and then the pursuers come and they say, which way did she go? And you think, I'm a Buddhist, I have to tell the truth. And they say, you tell them, oh, she went that way. You didn't break any of the rules. People asked you a question, you gave an answer. But if you can send them a different way and tell it by telling a lie, what do you think's best? But you told a lie. You're Buddhist. You took the 5 precepts. I will not lie. So you can see this kind of moral dilemma. There's a program on the BBC, or there used to be, called The Moral Maze. There are lots of amazing moral mazes, about what is right and wrong. So just to push you in the direction, it says there are many ways of acting, high and low. There are in Dharma many, many ways of acting. And then coarse and fine. So we act through physically and what we say. If you have a powerful mind, you also act through prayer and energy. And so depending on your own spiritual realization, then at the beginning our action can only be coarse. We can only use our speech to try and influence people, to try and help others. We can use our body. But as time goes on, then, and especially when the inner energies are mastered, then we can have a much more profound, far-reaching effect on others. And, for instance, a very holy person, people come to them for advice, they give advice, and because they are a holy person, they have a lot of spirituality, presence, and so on, people believe them. So then their disciples' lives change, and because their lives change, other people's lives change. So just through teaching, through your own example and spirituality and the advice you can give to people, that's a much more subtle way of acting. And like our great teachers, their blessing is with us all the time. And we feel it. We feel it in what we call samaya. We can either be very close to them and nurtured by them, but when we stray from the path, we get more self-centered and more lazy and so on. The bond weakens. We don't feel the blessing so much. And when it comes back, that can help us do things. So there are many ways of acting in terms of obvious action, gross action, and very subtle action through prayer. And then when we come to the bodhisattvas in the 10 levels, there are very subtle ways of acting through mantra, through dharani, and so on. So that's what it's talking about. There are many ways. Okay, we've done that. There are many ways. Dharma's vast. There are many ways to be found. But the best, the wisest, is to exert oneself as much as possible in accomplishing virtue and abandoning evil. The word is very strong. I put evil in the translation. The word in Tibetan is dikpa. Dikpa is no messing about word. It's bad, it's evil. It even sounds more poisonous. In fact, the word dikpa, the same word, is the word for a scorpion in Tibetan. So dikpa is what we do, which is ugly and poisonous and totally harmful and wrong and stupid. All those things. Dikpa is a no-nonsense word. You do dikpa, you go down. It's and when I'm saying this is because there are some translations like unskillful action or blah, 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 like that. Nice kind of, how can you say? What's the word? Touchy-feely word. The Tibetan and the Sanskrit isn't like that. It's wrong. It's evil. It's a heavy word, so I've translated it as evil. So we need to find all the things that we are doing with our body, our speech, or our mind, and get rid of them as quickly, as efficiently as possible, without getting lost in what we've read somewhere. There's no good, there's no evil. These are all projected human mindsets, artificial values, samsara, nirvana. They're the same. Doesn't matter what you do, and so on. No way. No way. The very best is to do as much good as you can. Help other people. Be a generous, kind help in your family, your local environment, in the world at large, if you can. Do as much as you can, and then try and do even more. So I have memories of Akon Rinpoche when he was alive, and his projects in Tibet were thriving. At the time, I was chairman of Rokpa Charity in France, and we had so many projects we were sponsoring. It wasn't easy. You have to raise money, you do all sorts of things, jumble sales, sponsored walks, whatever you can manage, raise money, and you're supporting 2-3 projects. And you go to the annual general meeting and you present it. And he said, and then he says, I've got 3 more projects for you. He said, but we can't. We've done everything we can. We've only got so many volunteers. The people have given us all they've got. And then he said, well, you'll find a way. Plop on your desk. No choice. And he did that with everybody. And everybody's saying, but how can we? We're doing our best. And he'd show you, no, you're not. You can do more. And remember once he was in Spain, and he started talking about his charity, and then he just asked each person, how much are you giving? What are you doing? And everyone's saying more or less, well, I'm giving whatever I can spare, or I support other works as well, like this. And he said to everybody, you can do better. And then he took them one by one and said, what can you do? One of them was a surgeon. And he said, well, I usually get a taxi to work. He said, well, you get a bus, and all the money you'd spend on taxis, you can give to help other people. And then other person said, well, I've only got a very low wage. So what could you do? He says, well, I have a coffee in a cafe before I start work. Okay, no coffee. You take yourself some water, or you make your own coffee. That much money you give. He showed everyone that although they thought they were doing their best, they weren't. They could do more. And that was what he was showing us all the time. we can do more without busting. There's no point doing too much so that you break up. But it's a big teaching. So we do as much as we can to help our fellow beings, and we do as much as we can in terms of our own virtue, prayers, meditation, and so on. Everything that's good, that's helpful, as much as possible and more, and anything that's harmful, to be very honest about it. No states of denial, just deal with it, get rid of it. So this is what this is what he says about action, the way we conduct ourselves in life. Now, when we look deeper into this, then we saw that the meditation, the point before, was about recognizing the union of voidness and clarity. Voidness, the interdependent, transient nature of everything. Nothing lasts more than a second. And yet everything manifests so vividly in our minds. So as we are practicing as much virtue as possible and getting rid of anything that's damaging, we're doing it from the point of view of the view and our meditation, knowing it's like a dream. We are a dream Buddhist, doing dream Buddhist things in a world which is the way the world appears uniquely to us in our own mind, our version of the world, and that the feeling of me is your mind, the experience of the action is happening in your mind, and the receiver of the action is happening in your mind. Three are the same. There is no this side, that side interaction. There is beyond duality, beyond triplicity. So accomplishing virtue that way, like it's a dream, is the best way to put it. Then I'd like to go back to Taisitrupa's statement I shared a couple of talks ago. I'm dreaming you. You're dreaming me. But it's very important that we respect each other's dream, and we do everything we can to make your dream, my dream, this dream, as good as it can be. So the fact that it's like a dream in no way diminishes. And by understanding non-duality, non-triplicity, and doing all the right things, even though it's like acting in a dream, that is very, very good conduct. So let's leave the conduct there. And then the next verse is about the result. So if we've got that view, that meditation, that conduct, then what's the result that we are aiming for? So when we talk about result, we're looking at what we're aiming for. I mean, the actual result is very inconceivable when it happens. But the importance of the result is, what are you aiming for? What do you want? What do human beings want? You want wealth? You want power? You want companionship? You want to be left in peace? If you look at the people around you, what does he want? What's he striving for? What's she want? What's she striving for? What's their definition of what will be the most marvelous outcome of my life? So when we're looking at result, it's very important, because that is the second of the three forms of faith. Faith is very important. There are three forms of faith. The second is inspired by the result. We see what Buddha did. That's what I want to do. We understand what Gampopa did, or Karmapas did, or Milarepa did. That's what I want to do. It's weird. You don't really have a clue what they really did or what they really are. I mean, we have devotion to Milarepa, but did anybody really know Milarepa? Maybe Rinpoche. It's kind of an idea, but it's so inspiring. Or Buddha, so inspiring. Buddha, one person who worked on his mind and who, because of that, has influenced billions of lives for the better ever since. One person, not with money, not with power, not with armies, not with writing words, by working on his being, has brought goodness to literally billions of people. That's wonderful. So it's so inspiring that we take refuge. I want to be like that. So this verse, this point about result, is not just looking at, well, what can happen if you do all of that technically. It means, what ideally you want to become. I think that's the best way of putting it. So then the Tibetan says, although so many things have been taught about how the result is attained, once it is attained, it is actually far wiser, far better to acquire definite certainty of that attainment through experiencing the unmistaken view, meditation, and action oneself. Drebu topdu topluk mang shechan, tagom chöpa matrul namlangna, neparatopi neshe dempazap. So there are many ways the outcome is taught, and in specifically what the outcome is and what's going on to produce that outcome and how it is once it happens. So there are many ways. On the Shravaka path, an arhat, how do you become an arhat? Then the different stages of absorption in shamatha, how you handle them, how you integrate the Four Noble Truths. So we see how step by step the Four Truths and the power of shamatha, peaceful mind, come together, and how that makes you stream entrant, one-time returner, non-returner. They're all stages of result, and in the end, Arhat, that's it, you've reached the end. Or for the Mahayana path, we've got the Bodhisattva levels, 5 stages of the path, stage of aspiration, stage of integration, and then insight, cultivation, 10 Bodhisattva levels. Each of them no going back result. And then in the end, at the end of the 10th Bodhisattva level, when we've seen what happens in all the ones before, the Vajra-like Samadhi takes you 100% forever into Buddha mind. And then in Vajrayana, we have in Mahamudra, for instance, the 4 stages of accomplishment of Mahamudra. One-pointedness, freedom from elaboration, one taste, no more meditation. each of those has 3 subsections, very much related to the reality of your practice. When your shamatha and vipassana gets to this point, you've reached the first of the 3 levels of one-pointedness. And then when it gets even better, we've got detailed explanations of what is and isn't happening in your mind. Middle level, then the top level, and so on. So we get 12 stages of result through Mahamudra, and at the third one of the last one, no more meditation, you're Buddha. You've achieved perfect Mahamudra, like Milarepa, like Khenpoken, like Karmapa, and so on. So it says there are many ways of describing the result, what it is, how it happens, what's going on in your practice to make it happen. But for understanding the result as your aim, it's far better to get your view crystal clear, to understand what your meditation is really about, and to understand action, how you interact with others, and morality of all of that. It's much better to actually do those things. And the main point here is you do it. And what we'll see as we go through this text is if you actually do the Chinresic practice according to this, then your view gets better and better. Your meditation has more and more 3 kayas, 4 kayas, light bulb moments. Your interaction with others will change dramatically. Chinresic will be you, shine through you. Your ego's disappearing. You're like a window that's getting cleaned. I've got some filthy windows in this house. We're at the end of winter. I've cleaned the main ones, but I've got some that have got a whole winters. You can barely see through them. And so bit by bit you can clean them. We are can be like through practice when we do Chinresic. You disappear and Chinresic is more and more there. It's an amazing thing. Yeah, I got a silly example came into my head. I'll share it. It's not from the scriptures, right? You know, they say the tentacles of octopus have their own brains. I don't know if you ever read that. It's like you're a tentacle that suddenly realized the whole octopus with all of its 8 arms, and it's kind of an awakening to what we really are. We really are Chinresic. Chinresic is Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nimanakaya, all of those together, Svabhavikakaya. Chinresic is this nature of mind, the truth of mind. Chinresic is pure love, pure wisdom, such peace, such perfection that's always been there. So this is gradually shining, 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 bigger and bigger, and your ego and your history is just disappearing in that brilliant light of Chinresic. So rather than focusing too much on an idea of the result, this is the point. Do the practice and let the practice make your view better and your inner intimate working in your mind better, and make your interactions with others better. Now, why is Karma Chamé saying this? Well, it's about the power of experience and the misleading power of experiences, meditation experiences, what you call religious, sacred experiences, no, seemingly religious, sacred experiences. And so many times you can think, oh, this is it. And very early on with beginners, the first time through shamatha, you really have peace. And you're not thinking, you're not distracted. It's just peace. It's so enormous, so wonderful. Such a goddamn relief. For the first time, your mind isn't blah, 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 here, there. And then as you practice any of the practices, if you're moving on, it starts affecting your inner energies, and they produce experiences, blissful ones, or moments of no thought, and feelings of vastness, feelings of all sorts. And you can think, this is it, this is the result, this is what it's all about. So that can be very misleading, especially in terms of action. And so before, when it described basic Buddhist morality and action, the bodhisattva one, like the teacup, and the nectar, the highest view, where you can work for the greater good because you've reached that level of purity and understanding of karma. People can feel like they've got to that level when they haven't, because they don't have the stability. And then Mara, evil, if you like, and ego, if you want to call it that, the power to deceive and mislead, can really wreck your dharma path, because you think you're more sacred than you are. It's very hard not to name names, but there was somebody back in the 1970s, a follower of the 16th Karmapa, who was very kind, a very incredibly dynamic person, who assumed he was a bodhisattva, and then later on, once the Karmapa was dead, acted like he'd been empowered to do much more than he could do. He really believed that inside, and he ended up giving empowerments to people when he didn't have the transmission, didn't have the lineage. So I remember at the beginning, he looked like he was doing wonders, spreading the word and bringing hundreds of people to the Dharma, especially bringing them to the Karmapa. Some of you who go back that far may know who I'm talking about. But at the very beginning, when Jamgon Kongtrul Rinpoche saw him, he said, oh, this is going to turn bad. There was so much enthusiasm, so much joy, and the person had done quite a lot of meditation practice and so on. It looked like a lot of good, somebody who could be held up as an example to others about, this is the way to go. And it ended up rather pear-shaped. So anyway, this is why Karma Chamé is giving us this verse. It's much better to actually practice Jinrazik. Be very clear. Good is good, evil is evil. Do as much good as possible. Avoid all evil. Cultivate the view and the practice of voidness and clarity. Like that. If you focus on those, the real result will come all by itself, and it will be a surprise. It won't be like anything you thought about. It won't be anything you can share with other people. It is profound. It is conceivable, it's ineffable. It's like all the things we saw in the Buddha nature teachings. That result will come through working on the view, meditation, and action, all by itself. And it won't be what you imagined when you were more of a baby Buddhist. So that's Karma Chamé's advice. And of course, he was a great teacher, exposed to many other meditators. So he saw what went on. And that's why he's helping us. And then he expands this in the next 2 verses, which are the last 2 verses of this first section. So he says, the next verse, although those at Mahabodhisattva level, in the 10 Bodhisattva levels that means, remain unsullied, even by serious wrongdoings or downfalls, enacted for the sake of the teachings, the likes of us still need fear the 3 lower realms and need to shrink away from all downfalls and non-virtue. So if we go back to that story of the Buddha when he was, when he was a bodhisattva on the boat, and that was the best thing to do, or some of you, probably not many of you, where is it? I've not got one to hand. No, I've not got one to hand. But at one point we translated stories called Zalandhara and Sakachupa. 2nd edition, we called it Former Lives of the Karmapas. And these were stories that Katia translated. The text had been lost, and she was in Rumtek with the Karmapa for a couple of months. And between the Karmapa and one of the Khenpos, they passed on orally 10 stories from the former lives of Karmapas in other time-space dimensions. And so they're almost like fairy tales. They're quite wow stories. So one of those stories is also a story of Karmapa in another realm, another reality, where the king was making such bad karma, and the Bodhisattva Karmapa could see all of the rebirths that would come out of the damage he was doing as a leader, as a king. And so then he manifested as an elephant that the king killed, and so on. Anyway, you see this skillful level of action, and that a great siddha, that a Karmapa, that like it says here, somebody who's in the 10 Bodhisattva levels, they can do something which is lying, which is stealing, which is killing, but it's only for the good. So the important line in there is enacted for the sake of the teachings, dharma action, not for ego. So it's an interesting sentence when you look at it. Unsullied, they're not dirtied, they're not polluted, even by serious wrongdoing, it says. It's almost like a contradiction. Saying not dirtied by dirt, not stained by stained, not made wet by water. If you look at the sentence, serious wrongdoings or downfalls. So when we go back to our Abhidharma teachings, and especially at the ones about Vinaya and monastic conduct, Buddhist conduct, then we see harmful actions fall into all sorts of categories. The very worst, serious wrongdoings, minor downfalls, and then for monks and nuns, they can lose their robes because of the most serious ones. Less serious ones they can fix. if they do the right things and so on. So in the code of Vinaya, and they've got all sorts of funny names like entrapments and this and that. So this is what we're referring to. What for a Buddhist are serious downfalls, serious wrongdoing or downfalls. When we look at the stories of the Mahasiddhas, like Maitripa's story, he was in a monastery. In a monastery, monks' rules and that. And in the eyes of others, he had a consort. He was drinking alcohol. And it sort of came and went. They'd look through the door and they'd see a consort, and then they'd look again and she wasn't there. Or he was drinking beer, and then they'd go in and it was just a cup of water. But they'd seen it. And you know, there's something goes on in religious communities. It's a sort of a jealousy. And so a lot of people wanted to get rid of him. So they complained to the discipline master. Discipline master at the time was Atisha. And Atisha, although he knew Maitripa was a Mahasiddha and that people were picking up visions of his Vajrayana practice in Pure Lands with consorts and so on, transformation practices. Although he knew that, he was obliged, because that was his job, to apply the monastic rule, and so he threw him out. This is a big thing in Tibetan Buddhist history. Atisha threw out a Mahasiddha. Was he right? Was he wrong? And what was the karma between these two guys? If you go back in there, there's a whole load of stuff going on. We don't need to know about it. But the thing is, at the Mahabodhisattva level, they can be doing these downfalls, like drinking alcohol, serious wrongdoings, having sex, enacted for the sake of dharma, but they remain unsullied. Why? What is sully? What is this sully? The English word means getting dirty, spoiled, getting stained, tarnished. Why? Because there's no ego. In the Mahabodhisattva levels, there's no more ego, motivation. So what they do is for the sake of dharma, but nevertheless, it's action with other beings, so it creates karma. They are not dirtied by it because there's no ego involved, but it goes into their stream of being. Does it make some sense? Is it? Yeah. So it says, well, that's them. Very hard for us to even imagine what their reality is like. Sorry, I'm thinking. But it says, although, right, blah, 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 the likes of us still need to fear the three lower realms. So we're not like those. If we haven't reached the 10 bodhisattva levels, if we haven't reached the stages of accomplishment of Mahamudra, although we can know that it can be like that, it doesn't mean that, oh, this is what Mahasiddhas do. There's no good, there's no evil, so we can go and whatever it is, get drunk, have sex, and all the rest of it willy-nilly. Lovely British expression, that, willy-nilly. Just when you look very closely, is there ego in there or not? is there ego desire? Are you doing this to fulfill your needs? Or is this really for the sake of dharma, for the sake of the other person 100% or not? So he says, the likes of us, the question doesn't even arise. Karma has its results, and we should fear them because we don't have the mind to absorb those results. I'm looking for stories in the back of my head, and there's one that's eluding me. You know, like when you get to my age and you can't remember somebody's name. and the more you look for it, the further it goes away. There are a couple of very relevant stories for this. And they're just, I can't get them. So anyway, we'll stick with the text. The likes of us need very much to fear the lower realms. I mean, I can give one, it's not the ones I'm looking for. But Buddha Shakyamuni, in his last incarnation, in the life of the Buddha that we know, there were 2 assassination attempts. So one of them damaged him. A boulder was pushed from a cliff and it fell and missed his head and landed and really damaged his foot. So he had a damaged foot and so on and so on. And he explained that he had so little karma left that hadn't ripened, and that this had got rid of one of them, a very serious karma, a sort of karma of killing, that for us would have taken us to lower realms for many lifetimes. So for him, he had to go through the karma, but he was in a state of magnificence and strength that he could carry it. You know, there's some people are old and frail, they can't carry. If you're young and strong, you can carry. Simple as that. Our mind can carry the consequences of actions done for the sake of dharma that break the rules. So the likes of us need to fear the 3 lower realms, because that's where we'll end up if we do the harmful things. And we need to shrink away from all downfalls and non-virtue. And then the last verse, offering to those, this is about how not only do we avoid any harm, but all of the good we've done, we need to make it as efficient as possible. We need to invest it in the future as efficiently, as effectively as possible. So offering to those above, caring for those below, writing and reciting texts and doing other virtuous actions should be freed from self-interest and channeled for the general benefit of beings. To that end, it is wisest to dedicate them extensively and in a way which transcends triplicity. Yachu Marchin Tridan Lopaso Rangdan Mimpara Drowa Chidan Korsom Mikme Mowara Jedep Zap Zapcha Dampi Lude Dampui Dampu. So what are the good things to do? We've just seen to avoid the bad ones, because we can't just tell ourselves about voidness and non-duality and be freed from the karma. It's not as simple as that. So the good things, offering to those above, caring for those below. This is a very, favored theme of Taisattupa. He puts it very simple. Offer up, help down. Right? For all of those who are more evolved than ourselves, then we offer, and to those who are less well off than ourselves, then we give our help. Just excuse me. Thank you. So, yeah, offering to those above. Yeah, you know that. Offerings, we make all sorts of offerings, simple offerings, complicated offerings, inner offerings, the offering of non-duality and so on. All of those, and then mandala offering, practice, gratitude, so on. Caring for those below, being kind, compassionate, and so on. Also helping the Dharma, which has amazingly survived 2,500 years. Helping it to carry on. So the old way was by copying texts. In the old days, texts were rare things. If you've ever read the book or seen the film Name of the Rose, you'll know Umberto Eco. It gives a very vivid picture of the way it was. Some texts only existed one copy in one place, in the great libraries, like in Nalanda. And people would come from all over the world to Nalanda to copy the text and then take it back to their own place. And that text was the key to a whole area of understanding. So these days it's different. We've got internet copy, amazing access. So what it really means is writing and reciting texts. It means keeping the Dharma and the pure Dharma alive. And doing other virtuous actions, we should do them freed from self-interest and channeled for the general benefit of beings. So being less and less selfish, more and more selfless. And to that end, the very best, is to do lots of dedication. It says it's like a drop of water. All by itself it will evaporate, but if you put it in the ocean, it lasts forever. Whatever good we can do with body, speech and mind, immediately we dedicate it before we spoil it with ego. I did this, or before we get involved, we give it away, move on. So we dedicate it extensively. We do lots and lots. Extensively means do lots of dedication prayers, yes, but it means again and again, you have a good thought, you offer it up and let go and move on. You do a good deed. You don't swell up in pride. You offer it beyond subject-object interaction. Just let go like a dream. Move on. And in particular, in a way which transcends triplicity, where we make the other person, what we're helping the environment becomes something other than you. We feel this like oneness. We are Buddhist Einsteins. We've got a one-field theory. We are part of everything. Even more than that, we just are everything. Everything is us. So then the last line of the Tibetan says, this was the first song of counsel on the deepest, wisest Dharma. This very important section, which is to help us see that Chenrezig practice can totally embody the deepest of all the practices, Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Mahamudra and Dzogchen, which are at the very peak of all Vajrayana practices. So let's dedicate in the way we're doing now with the Chenrezig dedication prayer. I prostrate to the Dharmakaya, union of all the Buddhas of the 3 times, to the one who gazes upon the 6 kinds of beings, Chenrezig, 11-faced and all-pervading like space. Most impressive to most impressive and majestic Amitabha, Om Mani Padme Hum. Through the quintessence of all the Dharma in 6 syllables, may a cloud of offerings appear. May they be presented to the peerless guide, Chenrezig, and to Shakyamuni, king of sages, the crowning glory of all the Shakyas, and to an ocean of Buddhas and their bodhisattva offspring in the 10 directions, and to all the Kagyu Lamas. Om Mani Padme Hum. May the fulfillment of the wishes of the former Buddhas, the completion of the accumulation of future Buddhas, and the long life prayers of the present Buddhas all be made manifest through the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who have a karmic link with me, my father, my mother, my teachers, relatives and friends, all those who place their hopes in me and rely on me. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing that they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who've been my benefactors and asked me not to forget them, and all those kind benefactors I promised not to forget. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All the dead for whom lamas have been asked to say prayers, all those who passed away from this life or whose possessions I received to share. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All the beings who live off the goods intended for making representations of the body, speech and mind of all the Buddhas, and those who live from the belongings of Sangha or Lamas, and from ransom obtained through selling sacred images, or from goods offered out of faith. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. The dead I've heard about or seen with my own eyes, and all those in the 3 dimensions of conditioned existence who passed away. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who've been murdered, who died from starvation, who perished on high mountain passes, or were drowned, or those who wander in the bardo, accompanied by so much sin and no virtue. Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way, and grant them your blessing, that they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. The most kind mother cow, whose milk and yogurt I consume, all the animals whose flesh and blood I've eaten, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way, and grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All the pack animals overburdened with loads they can hardly bear, those beasts who are beaten while ridden, those that wouldn't budge and had their nose pierced for pulling with a rope, plough animals, Protector Chenrezig, lead them all on the way, and grant them your blessing, they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Those who've committed the 10 unvirtuous actions, and the 5 immeasurable sins of no reprieve, or the 5 sins almost as great, all those with such bad karma. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Those in the hells, craving spirits, animals, jealous semi-gods, gods and men, all sentient beings in the 3 dimensions of conditioned existence. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way, and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who live in the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and wind, whether in bodily form or formless, small or large, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Rulers, monsters, and citizens steeped in corruption, bad men who are shameless, deceitful, and hypocritical, those with ill will in their hearts, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Infinite as all the cosmic systems in the 10 directions, all beings as difficult to reckon as the unfathomed deeps, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Beings who live in each province of this world, or anywhere on similar planets under their suns, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you. Well, that's as far as I could get today, but we finished the first song, as he calls it, our first chapter. So over to you for your comments or questions or anything you'd like to contribute. And
Ken, sorry.
Yep.
Quick question. Did you do the Tibetan on verse 12? I'm not sure you did.
Verse 12, I'm not sure I've got the numbers on all of them.
Although those at Mahabodhisattva level.
Right.
The penultimate one.
Or maybe not. I can do it again. Ten lapen chera sabchen diktung so satop simpa namla midrup jang rang nong so sumla drapichir diktung te bang me para zempa zap.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Paul.
Hello.
Oh, Myron, there you are. Hello.
Sorry, I don't have my video on, but I'm
Yeah.
giving myself an electrical treatment on my shoulder.
All
So
right.
I'm not fully, well, in Hawaii, I'd be fully dressed, but you guys might doubt. Because we go to the beach a lot.
Yeah.
So on this song, it goes through the first part where he says, if you're going to do this, you got to do that, but that's too much. And, then if you want to be this guy, you got to learn everything. And wow, that's so much, like what you have to do. He finally gets down to says, but the wisest is to practice the unity of lucidity and voidness. the development stage.
For the meditation, yeah.
Right. So then that's one point I think that he's saying is that
Yeah.
forget all that stuff, but you've got to meditate on the unity of lucidity or clarity and voidness, emptiness, shunyata. Yeah. That's the meditation. And the action is to accomplish virtue and abandon evil.
Yeah.
So this is pretty standard stuff, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Well, for the meditation, it's standard stuff if you've been a long time steeped in Mahamudra or Dzogchen practice. So that's very familiar. But if we look at like all Buddhists of all the traditions and the different levels, then that isn't, the main meditation. Though that union of clarity and voidness is, or the union, excuse me, of Rigpa. Voidness, they're the in-house terms specifically for the way it's done in this level.
So I was a lucky guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I met Khenpo.
Well, there you go. And really and truly. And
so then I didn't get exposed. I'm just stuck in the main path.
Like for the meditation, which here is the union of voidness and clarity. In a meditation, if we go to Goenka's Vipassana, what is the meditation practice there, right? That's the meditation. That's the meditation.
But it's rest in the natural state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
meditation, non-meditation, not two different things.
No, it's all part of the
division. That's a Milarepa song.
Yeah, that's what Milarepa. That's how it is for Milarepa.
Yeah.
This is how it is if we are practicing Chinrezig according to Karma Chamé.
Right.
But this is only how it is if we're going to practice Chinrezig according to Karma Chamé. If we're going to practice Mahamudra according to Mahamudra Ocean of Certainty and the Kamakaju thing, then you've got the foundation practices, special foundation. That's how you do it there. If you're doing Dzogchen, then you've got Trekche, Turgal, you've got their methods. And when it says rest in the nature of mind, first you've got to recognize the nature of mind. Otherwise you can't rest in it. You're going to be resting in your idea, not yours, but one's idea of the nature of mind. So it's so important. It's something I've seen in my life with exposure to different Buddhist traditions and so on, is you realize that they've all got good advice, but not all advice is good for everybody all the time. So if you say, but the Buddha said this, or if Rinpoche, what's his face, has said this, they are each teaching within the context of their own path. And we need to see, yes, that's the instruction, that's the way it is, that's the deep truth in that way. And then, but Buddha also said, what Goenka was teaching and what Zazen is teaching and so on. So people say, yes, but the Buddha said this, or I read a book by Chujang Trungpa in which he said blah, blah, blah. And we should know it's specific. And more than that, so many teachings that we have access to these days are taken from transcripts of live teachings, like most of Trungpa's stuff. And it doesn't say he was teaching to this audience, this room full of people at that time, and this is what they needed to hear. We just say, blah, 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 this is that, this is action, and so on. So it is just so invaluable to us. Yeah.
I have a very negative view of Trungpa, so I don't really want to discuss it.
Yeah, I know, but lots of people read
I-
it, and he quotes, he says here, he says it, and a lot of it's, I mean, it's so
he, he had
classical
al
dharma.
no, he had alcoholic brain damage, and he was just making shit up. He couldn't remember.
No, a lot of the stuff he says is authentic dharma, especially what he wrote earlier on, or teachings he gave earlier on. And I'm not saying he's a good teacher. I'm just saying that he was teaching the people he was teaching in the way he was doing his best with. But that doesn't mean because he said it and because he's quoting one area of the Buddha's teaching that we all need to say, oh, this is what the Buddha intends for me. We need
There's
to know.
there's still a problem from Naropa with Trumpa's organization, which is really pretty demonic.
Yeah, I know. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking
Yes.
about
Well, no,
that.
that's what I'm talking about, is because I'm still in that lineage and I'm still affected by those people.
Sure. And it's very
And
terrible. Very, very
they have
terrible what
a
happened.
very negative outcome. They
Yeah.
almost all died. And so then they're angry at me because they had this AIDS thing
Mm.
and they're crazy. I was at one of their retreats and the teacher there, this lady teacher goes, oh, well, he told us this was no good, but we're going to do it anyway. So then they had this wandering thing, aimless wandering. So I ended up wandering around the parking lot, getting in my car and going home. So they called me and asked me what happened. So I told them, well, I was aimlessly wandering and ended up home. So,
Yeah.
but the miraculous thing about Kempo was he could see what you needed to know to get back on the correct
Mm.
trajectory.
Yeah.
So there's some teachers that can actually see that. And the Buddha gave a lot of different teachings to different people, and he would say one thing and then the opposite thing to somebody else.
Mm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all contextual in that sense.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And if we don't get that, we can
But
think, well, this is the Buddha's teaching because
the,
Buddha
fi-
actually did say
the,
it.
fi- the final goal, I think, is the unity of lucidity and voidness. That whatever he's telling people, the goal is all this same Buddha nature, the same essence of mind.
That's the way we see it. But it's not the way, for instance, that some of the great Burmese traditions see it. They don't use those terms. They don't see it in this way. It's samsara, suffering, bring it to an end. Nothing.
Oh, yeah, we go through the progressive stages of meditation.
No, but for them, that's not stage one. It leads on to that. That's it.
Right, they get stuck there. So that's their
No,
karma.
from our point of view, they get stuck there. From their point of view, that's what it is. And everything they do is in the Buddha's teaching and it's in the Mahayana text. So we need to contextualize, we need to.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what's happening for me personally, I need to talk to you about it sometime,
Yeah.
is that I'm in the bardo of dying. I have this post-COVID neuropathy, and my right arm is basically falling off my body. And if it keeps progressing, all my nerves are going to knock out. So what I was thinking earlier this evening was, I guess I'm getting ready to meet the Mother Clear Light.
Yeah.
I better do the child. So that's what am I going to do? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, quite honestly, the best advice I can offer you is a course I've done several times. There's at least twice on the YouTube, which is about preparing. Yeah, but that's. I mean, you really have to do that. You really have to do it.
Going through all that.
Yeah, it's not a teaching. This is what we all need to do.
It's a purification kind of thing.
Yeah, there are different steps. I mean, it's from 7 point mind training. It's how we deal with what's in our mind that was generated by this life, how we deal with what's about to come as the dying bardo really happens and you get the experiences, and then the in between life bardo, the clear light, all of that. It's a very hands-on, very
Right.
practical teaching that's got, it's like the octopus, it's got several legs, and we need all of them, and we need to do them in the right order so that we take ourselves out of this life. It's gone, and we are really steering ourselves, ahead. It's the most wonderful teaching, and my
What what
teachers have said this.
what should
Yeah.
I Google on YouTube to find that on your
Khenpoken, one word,
yeah, khenpoken. I know that, yeah. And then
dying as best one can.
oh, okay, yeah. I did that course live with you, but I'm going to review it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and can help you with the documentation too if you didn't get it
Right.
at the time. But really,
I
I
probably
know
have it.
Akon Rinpoche said to me, and then I think Taisitaba, so many have said, out of all the teachings for dying, like the Bado Todol and all of those things, this 7 point mind training one that I teach in that course, they said they've found this one actually works for people. And in Samiling, we've had a lot of our members die, and sometimes they've ended up dying in care in a hospital or hospice. And the feedback we've had from the staff, they said, we never saw people die like this. It's really remarkable.
Uh-huh.
And,
Okay.
and like Poa. Poa it's great if it works, but you need all the circumstances okay for Poa to work, and quite what state we're going to be in when the moment of death comes, awake, asleep, medicated or not. Uh, it's
Uh-huh.
uh, it's great if you can, but if
So
everything's
basically,
invested in POA, doing the POA practice when you go, you're taking a risk. Whereas this 7 point mind training, you do it beforehand. It programs you. It puts stuff inside you that will really come out when the rest of you is collapsing. This stuff
so
comes to the fore.
the 7 point mind training that has to do with sending and taking. Is that correct?
Uh, Sending and taking is part of point two of mind training, 7 point mind training,
Uh-huh.
called the actual meditation practice. How to die is part of point four. Point four is in two sections: how to live, how to die, how to live in 5 points, and how to die as best you can in 5 points. So it partly uses the Tonglen practice, because that was already taught in point two, uh, but it's a specific section on how to die.
And then you're doing that Tonglen the first weekend
Yeah,
on your on your
yeah,
thing.
and using a special method. So it's got a special transmission that
Did I
came from the
join
first
that, or
Jamgon. Yeah,
can I join that, or is that a closed group? Or
you can join that, but if you want to join it, then you need to. There are there were a couple of sessions of training in how we do it this way, because it's not the usual Tonglen. It's a special
uh-huh.
method from the first Jamgon Control Rinpoche that
Right.
uses combines Tonglen with Guru Yoga.
Well, we could you could introduce me to that at
Yep,
some.
sure.
And then the other craziness I'm going through is the world situation. So I feel like I'm a dharma controller of some sort, that I need to use my meditation power to correct the forces that are going on now. I've actually been visited by the UFO, Alien Space Force. A couple of years ago, I was in a retreat with Dzogchen Rinpoche. We could send in questions. And I knew he wouldn't answer the question, but I sent in a question. Do you believe that Siddha Rinpoche says that Kala Chakra is happening now, and the King of Shambhala will have a flying wheel? That's the UFO, and they're here to bring about a golden age of world peace. So I asked him that question, and I knew he wasn't going to answer because it was a Mahamudra Dzogchen teaching. But the next night on YouTube, Siddha Rinpoche is doing some kind of special prayer, and at the end, he always says, "Stay safe during the pandemic." And all of a sudden, he says, "Stay safe during the pandemic and the coming golden age." And then the very next night, I'm taking pictures of the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. It's supposed to be the beginning of the age of Aquarius. And it's sunset. I'm taking these pictures of Diamond Head and the Kaimuki Christmas tree and the stars. And when I look at my phone, there's a UFO, flying saucer. They came to visit me to answer my question that, yes, this is the coming of the age of Shambhala. So I have this Kala Chakra Alien Space Force connection.
Yeah.
For world
So
peace.
to go back to your original question, Myron, if it's happening, Shambhala, Golden Age, all of that, then just let it happen, because that is the union of clarity and voidness. Clarity is what's happening in your reality with that, and by remaining in that each moment, that is what is happening. And then the union of clarity and voidness is interdependent. That is your reality through all of your past. That's how you're experiencing it. And let it go and move on to the very next instant. You don't need to influence it. If it's going to happen, the Shambhala King and Buddha's coming, it's not going to come because you made it happen. But you were going to be in that reality because you allow it to happen to you. I think in terms of your question about what do we do in the meditation, following Karma Chamé's advice and Mahamudra advice, and then the meditation is to recognize each moment fresh, without projection and preconception, just live it in the union of voidness and clarity. You don't need to do in there. That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. Its activity, Buddha activity, will shine through you when you stop Myron activity.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. So you've been a friend for lifetimes, even before I met you. I had your books and your texts. And so I feel like I've known you my whole Dharma career.
Yeah, let's all carry on knowing each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think we've come to the end of today's session and wish you all the very best. We come back together in a week. We go into the second chapter now, looking at just how wonderful and precious and unique, really unique, this human life in this weird age is. We are very lucky, even though we look around, it doesn't seem that we've been born in the best of times. These really are. Exactly like in Dickens. These are the best of times, these are the worst of times. Okay, take good care. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken. Best wishes, Myron.
Take care now. Go well, everybody.
Bye-bye, bye-bye.